Inspiring true story. Neighbor calls police on illegal wedding revealed groom is a sheriff. The sun shone brightly over the small Midwestern town, casting a warm glow on Sarah and Jake's backyard, where they were preparing for the wedding of their dreams. The air hummed with excitement, the smell of blossoms merging with the sweet scent of love. In a world where dreams often felt out of reach, this couple's humble celebration symbolized hope and resilience. But as festive banners draped the backyard, excitement soon turned into tension when their nosy neighbor, Mrs. Horton, thwarted their joy with a spiteful tip to the police. As the gentle breeze caressed the blossoming flowers, Sarah found herself caught between anticipation and anxiety. Raised by a single mother who defined perseverance, Sarah embodied that spirit. Yet today, the weight of judgment loomed heavier than ever. She caught sight of neighbors peering through their curtains, whispers swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gust. It should have been a day filled with laughter, but instead, she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Jake, her steadfast partner and a deputy sheriff, noticed her distress. "Sarah, this is our day," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her. "Nothing can take that from us." But doubt didn't fade. The sound of approaching sirens pierced the calm afternoon air, sending chills down their spines. What began as their blissful union shifted into disbelief. Was their love really worth the scrutiny and division from their own community? As they heard the knock at the door, anxiety ratcheted up. Jake squared his shoulders, determination lining his jaw. Police officers stood outside, a surreal sight at this time of celebration. "Ma'am, we've received reports about an illegal gathering," said a serious officer, but Jake stepped forward, badge glinting in the sunlight. As the officers shifted their gaze to him, the atmosphere pulsated, tension cracked like dry twigs underfoot. "This isn't an illegal gathering," Jake declared, a low voice filled with conviction. He narrated their story of love, painting a picture of family and friendship. People in the neighborhood were shifting their stance, some nodding in appreciation, others frowning in uncertainty. The whispers that had once condemned them started to melt into murmurs of admiration. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Amid the chaos, Sarah's heart raced as she observed friends appearing, coming from their homes and leaning in, wanting to show support. Faces she thought would look away from her now seemed to radiate shared history. For many, Sarah's mother had been a guiding light, and the memory of her sacrifices ignited a flicker of pride within the community. With the music softly starting to play, an unsettling sense of anticipation loomed. This wedding was no longer just about Sarah and Jake. It held a mirror to the town's growing pains of acceptance, love, and old prejudices simmering just beneath the surface. Would the fabric of their relationships withstand this day, or would the whispers drown them out? Jake stood at the edge, a protector not just of his bride but of a dream shared by many. This was a moment filled with uncertainty, as the crowd held their collective breath. Would love triumph over judgment? As neighbors gathered, their glances shifting from curiosity to acceptance, the air crackled with potential, setting the stage for a confrontation not just for one couple, but for the very heart of their town. The moment hung in the air like a promise yet to be fulfilled. Sarah stood frozen, allowing the music to fill the space around them. Each note seemed to weave a thread between her and the neighbors who were inching closer now, curiosity overshadowing doubt. As she glanced at Jake, his eyes sparkled with determination. This was their chance, perhaps even a new beginning for everyone in their town. "Let us go," Jake said, holding out his hand to her. She grasped it tightly, feeling the warmth of his palm saturate her with courage. Together, they took a few steps forward, straight toward the gathering crowd. It felt surreal, yet the beat of the music urged them on. "Hey everyone! Jake's voice cut through the tension. He smiled, the kind that reached his eyes, and Sarah felt a ripple of reassurance wash over her. "Thank you for coming. Today is a celebration of love, of family, of us all." The crowd responded, some chuckling nervously as a few dogs barked in the distance. Sarah noticed familiar faces, those who used to be just acquaintances, flashing soft smiles that danced with acceptance. Others still held hesitation, their brows creased as they exchanged glances. Sarah stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper yet resonating with sincerity. "I know some of you might not agree with everything about today. But this wedding is just us declaring that love is worth fighting for. Please, let us not let anything divide us. We all want to celebrate together." Her heart surged with hope. For a fleeting moment, it felt like they might just be turning a corner. Now, more people stepped in from the edges of the lawn, hesitant but intrigued. An elderly man with gray hair broke the collective silence and raised a large cup that glimmered in the sun. "To love," he proclaimed, and some joined in a clinking cheer. Jake laughed, his voice rich and warm before he continued, "And to our supportive community, for helping us through this." A few more voices joined in, laughter ringing out in sweet harmony. The ice was slowly cracking, revealing a safe haven beneath one where acceptance could flourish. The officers, previously stiff and serious, began to relax. One even chuckled at the growing enthusiasm, a sign that the tension was easing. "Well, we didn't bring our dancing shoes, but this seems more like a celebration than an uproar," one of them said, transforming their official demeanor into something more approachable, yet Sarah could still feel the weight of the eyes that lingered with skepticism. She understood that not everyone would change overnight, that love was a hard concept to grasp for some. It wasn't just about them anymore but the entire community rebuilding trust. As the crowd danced and swayed beneath the blue sky, Sarah's heart soared and plummeted simultaneously. She glanced at Jake, who was laughing with her father. The sight brought warmth to her chest, yet there was still an ache anticipating the next wave of scrutiny they might face as the day progressed, and then, as if on cue, Mrs. Horton appeared at the edge of the crowd. Her arms crossed, her face a mix of disapproval and surprise. Silence fell around her like a blanket, and all eyes snapped to the woman responsible for the disruption. Sarah could feel the air thicken with tension again. "What now?" she heard someone whisper, and Sarah's heart raced. This was at the moment that could either break them or bring them together. Could the words she spoke next heal the rift she felt had plagued their town? Would Mrs. Horton open her heart to the power of love, or would this day spiral down into a confrontation that echoed the past? With a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward, preparing for a conclusion that could change everything. "Mrs. Horton." Sarah's voice rang out, clear and strong. She approached the woman, heart pounding, as the crowd grew tense with anticipation. The moment felt weighty, heavy, almost too big for words. Each footstep held a mixture of hope and fear. Mrs. Horton's expression remained stern, her posture rigid. "You think this is a joke, Sarah? This is against everything our community represents." The crowd held its breath. Sarah glanced around, seeing a mix of support and skepticism in the eyes watching her. What could she say to bridge this gap? "I know this isn't what everyone expected," Sarah replied, her voice steady but vulnerable. "But love shouldn't be a reason for division. It should be the glue that holds us together." Jake stepped up beside her, squeezing her hand tighter, lending her strength. "We're asking for acceptance, not just for us but for everyone who believes in love without boundaries," he added, his voice rising above the whispers. "This is about coming together as a community, not tearing each other apart." Mrs. Horton's brow furrowed further, her lips thin. Then, she tilted her head ever so slightly, as if considering the weight of Jake's words. The crowd did not dare to interrupt, each person hoping she would take a step closer to understanding. "Love?" she said, her tone laced with disbelief. "You think that's all it takes to fix everything?" "It's a start," Sarah replied, taking a cautious step forward. "We're not perfect, we have our struggles, our differences. But if we can't find it in our hearts to respect each other, what chance do we have?" A murmur rippled through the crowd, and something shifted in Mrs. Horton's expression. It was subtle but there. Uncertainty crept in where there had been only stone-cold disapproval. "Think about your son, Mrs. Horton," Jake continued, his voice raw now. "If you had raised him with love, wouldn't you want his happiness above all? Isn't that what we're all about?" The mention of her son made the crowd pause, a vulnerable moment laying bare one of the core values they all shared: family. It was a glimpse of humanity crackling in the charged air. Mrs. Horton had been significant in their town, a voice of authority, but was also a mother, a woman who had once just wanted the best for her child. Her voice faltered, and for the first time, the power dynamic felt like it was shifting. The community stood united, eyes fixed on her. Several faces from the crowd looked on with hope. Sarah couldn't gauge whether this would end in understanding or animosity, but she had to believe it would be the former. Maybe Mrs. Horton hesitated, the wall she had built around herself cracking. "Maybe I've been too rigid." A flash of hope danced across Sarah's vision. It felt like a stallion galloping through her heart, hopeful yet cautious. The crowd leaned in, some starting to nod in agreement, sensing the tide turning. Then, the unexpected happened. From behind Mrs. Horton, a small voice piped up. It was her son. "Mom, I think it's really cool that Sarah and Jake want to share their love with us. Can't we just let them?" Gasps echoed through the crowd, but the boy's innocent words broke the tension even more. Mrs. Horton turned, eyes wide in surprise as her son looked up at her, filled with genuine curiosity and support. The weight of her decision hung there, the heart of the community vibrating with anticipation. Would Mrs. Horton embrace this new reality, or would she turn away from it once more? Just as the moment felt ready to break free, a new voice rang out from the back of the crowd, a deep, commanding tone that cut like a knife. "What's happening here? This is against city regulations." The town's mayor stepped into view, authority looming. Sarah's heart sank at his interruption. Would they lose the moment that had begun to unfurl into acceptance? The hope she built felt ready to shatter as she turned to face this new challenge. But deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. What might the mayor have to say? Would his view spur their momentum or tear it down completely? Their journey for love and acceptance was just starting. The mayor stepped forward, his presence casting a long shadow over the gathering. His eyes darted around, assessing the situation. "This kind of public display is strictly prohibited without permission. You're creating a scene that disrupts the peace," he proclaimed, his words thunderous enough to silence the murmurs washing through the crowd. A chill ran down Sarah's spine, her heart thumping like a war drum against her ribcage. The moment of connection she felt blossoming with Mrs. Horton now faced a wall of authority. She quickly glanced at Jake, his face tight with anger, but there was also determination shining in his eyes. "Mayor Thompson," Sarah called out, trying to regain control of the situation. "What we're doing here allows us to be authentic, and it represents love. How can that be a disruption?" The mayor's expression hardened. "Rules are rules, and they exist for a reason. This isn't about love, it's about maintaining order. Love doesn't give you the right to flout the law." His voice was cool, authoritative. It felt like ice in the air. Glancing at Mrs. Horton, Sarah noticed her shifting uncomfortably. The sincerity of the boy's words still lingered in the air. "No one here wishes for chaos," Mrs. Horton finally interjected, surprise lining her voice. "We're trying to find a way to move forward, a way to love each other better." The crowd responded, a ripple of agreement spreading among them. "This isn't just about them," someone called from the back. "It's about all of us." The mayor frowned but pressed on, "I have a duty to uphold the law. Let us not confuse sentimentality with legality." His pointed gaze locked onto Sarah, who felt her heart racing, thoughts spinning. His authority was daunting, but what was at stake here was bigger than rules. What if we don't have to choose? Jake stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. If everyone can put aside their differences, why can't we request a permit that allows this celebration of love to go on? What? The mayor's brow furrowed. You want to argue to break the law, all for a wedding? Yes. Sarah felt a surge of vindication. It's more than just a wedding. It's about showing our community that love belongs to everyone. Not just in the shadows. The mayor hesitated. His voice became softer. You realize this sort of request takes time, right? Time? Jake echoed, incredulous. How much more time will we waste hiding who we are? Don't you want to be part of a community that evolves? The mayor clasped his hands, visibly struggling with the pressure. The crowd around him erupted with quiet encouragement. Let them celebrate. Affectionate shouts began to fill the air as the warmth of solidarity rippled through the assembled group. But the mayor remained firm. He was teetering on the edge. This isn't just a decision I can make on the spot. We'll have to discuss this at the council meeting next week. The crowd groaned, frustration palpable. Next week isn't soon enough. Someone protested, their voice layered with raw emotion. Amidst the fray, Mrs. Horton turned back to her son, who watched with wide, hopeful eyes. That small voice, so full of innocence and belief, had already seeped into the heart of this fight. Could her previous assumptions be shifting? What if she chose to speak up now? Mayor Thompson, Mrs. Horton's voice rang out clear, cutting across the chaos. What if we let them? Her gaze met the mayor's, a flicker of resolve igniting in both of them, as she added, what if we open our hearts just a little? The room set a collective breath, poised on the cusp of something significant. Would Mrs. Horton lead the way, ushering in a change that might shift the town's outlook? With emotions peaking, Sarah took a step closer, feeling the weight of the moment. The crowd's anticipation thickened, ready for what could either become a bridge or a chasm. Let us show them what love can do, she whispered to Jake, just as the mayor's response began to form, a heavy pause lingering in the air like a storm waiting to break. Would they rise together, or would old fears prevail? The mayor looked around at the sea of faces, some filled with hope, others still holding tightly to fear. The tension in the air felt electric, almost crackling with possibilities. This is a complex issue, he finally said, but his voice lacked the conviction it carried earlier. Uncertainty hung over him like a fog. Around Sarah, murmurs grew louder. Open your hearts. Someone shouted, emboldened by Mrs. Horton's earlier courage. The sentiment thrummed through the crowd like a heartbeat, echoing back to the mayor. Then, from somewhere in the back, a voice broke through the clamor. If you can hear us, Mayor, how many lives have to be put on hold for a permit? The words pierced through the mayor's facade. He opened his mouth to respond, but Sarah couldn't hold back. This isn't just about permits. It's about living without fear. About love that needs to breathe. The mayor's gaze darted around, his grip on authority slipping. Look, I understand the passion, he began, the weight of his words settling painfully like ashes in the air. But laws exist for a reason. They protect. Protect us from what? Jake challenged, stepping closer to confront the mayor. Love? Visibility? You think hiding will keep this community safe? What does that teach us? The crowd erupted in a chorus of agreement, voices rising like a wave. We will not hide. Someone shouted. The emotion surged, wrapping around them like a blanket. Then the mayor hesitated again, his furrowed brow indicating a crack in his resolve. There was a heaviness in the air, thick with hope and fear alike. Sarah stared at him, seeing a man torn between maintaining order and realizing the value of community. Mrs. Horton suddenly stepped forward, the stakes of her silence drawing deep. My son deserves to love openly. We all do, her voice rang out, unwavering. This isn't just a wedding. It's a declaration. We want to grow together. Jake turned to her, the light of her words illuminating the space. Thank you, he said softly, as if giving her the strength to continue. The mayor stood tall, but it was a shaky stance. Something simmered beneath the surface, a flicker of consideration. If I allow a permit, it could set a precedent. I'm not sure. It will set a precedent. A good one, Sarah replied, stepping closer still. We can show others that our town chooses love over fear. Isn't that what you really want for your community? The murmurs rose again, louder this time, drowning out the mayor's hesitation. The crowd surged forward, hungry for change, for hope. They were hungry for the chance to embrace each other, to stand together proud in their love. Let us celebrate love. They chanted, hands raised, their energy palpable. In that moment, something shifted. The mayor's gaze softened, a flicker of understanding igniting. There was no longer just a confrontation, it was a chance to reshape his legacy, to show his community that love could lift them higher than fear ever could. But just as the crowd cheered, a figure emerged from the edge, causing the jubilation to falter. Hold on. A familiar voice rang out. It was the sheriff, his stern face etched with urgency. You all need to see this. All eyes turned toward him, hearts pounding and breaths held. What revelation awaited them that could change everything? The sheriff stepped forward, his expression a mix of urgency and concern. The noise of the crowd dissipated, the earlier cheers fading into whispers of confusion. Please, everyone. I need to address something important, he said, his voice carrying authority but also a hint of heaviness. The mayor shifted uneasily, caught off guard by the sheriff's unexpected interruption. What is it, Sheriff? He asked, trying to regain control of the gathering. With a small nod, the sheriff gestured to one of his deputies standing nearby. The deputy held up a set of papers, a look of apprehension written across his face. We received a complaint. An anonymous tip about this gathering, specifically the wedding that was planned. They claim it violates the law. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah's heart dropped, the weight of fear returning like a shadow creeping over their moment of hope. A complaint? From who? She asked, her voice steady despite the dread gnawing at her insides. The sheriff exhaled, a sign he was feeling the tightness of the moment too. We don't know. The caller didn't leave their name. But the complaint is official, and I'm obligated to respond. Sarah felt the panic blistering beneath the surface. But this isn't just a gathering. This is about love. People deserve to celebrate openly. I know, the sheriff replied, a flicker of empathy in his eyes. But if we don't address this, I risk legal repercussions for the county, not to mention there could be fines involved for Jake and whoever performs the ceremony. The crowd began to murmur, some voices sounding uncertain. This can't be happening. Jake yelled, clenching his fists. We've come too far. A wave of anger surged through the people. We're not going back. Someone shouted. Enough of this fear. The sheriff held his hand up, trying to calm the storm brewing. Listen, let us not lose sight of what matters. There's strength in numbers. If you all stand together, those who seek to divide us can't win. The mayor cleared his throat, stepping beside the sheriff. What we need to do is come together now. This is a critical juncture for our community. If there's a complaint, let us show that our love is stronger than any legal obstacles. A flicker of hope sparked back to life, inspiring murmurs of agreement. Together. Someone shouted, raising their fist in solidarity. Others followed, hands lifted high, resonating as a living testament to their resolve. Let us not back down. Sarah declared, her voice rising above the cacophony. Let us not let fear dictate our right to love openly. We can fight this. With that, the crowd began to chant again, their voices blending into a powerful symphony of unity. Together. 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 Each utterance reinforced their bond, drowning out the remnants of doubt, but then the sheriff raised a finger, drawing their attention. If you want to fight this, we need to find out who made the complaint. There's power in knowing your opponents, understanding their fears. Everyone turned toward him, their eyes wide with determination and curiosity. Would they discover who stood against them? And in doing so, could they change the narrative enveloping their town? Sarah held her breath, waiting to see if the truth would liberate them or bind them further. As the sheriff prepared to speak once more, the crowd leaned closer, their anticipation growing thick in the air. "We need a united front," he said. "But it won't be easy. So tell me, are you ready to face the challenges ahead?" The room fell silent, and every heart seemed to hold a single question: would love triumph in the face of adversity, or would they be forced to retreat into the shadows once again? The tension in the air was palpable as the sheriff looked out over the crowd, his gaze steady yet searching. Sarah felt a knot tighten in her chest. She knew they were at a tipping point. They had to do something to turn the tide. The murmurs rose again, swirling through the gathering like a restless wind. It was as if the crowd was collectively holding its breath, waiting, unsure. "We can't let a nameless complaint dictate our lives," Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the uncertainty. A few people nodded, but others still looked conflicted. "But what if this is more serious than we think?" Someone called from the back. "What if we get fined? What if we lose our jobs?" Jake stepped forward, his expression fierce. "We've already lost too much to fear. This wedding means everything to us, to our community. If we turn back now, we might as well go back to hiding." A wave of agreement rippled through the crowd again, but this time it felt different. It was laced with determination, fueled by their desire to stand strong in the face of adversity. "Together!" They shouted again, louder, their voices combining into a rising tide. "Moments like this define who we are," the mayor added, his voice steady and sure. "We can show everyone that love can't be silenced. We can stand up for what's right." The sheriff stepped back, watching as energy surged. He understood the burden they were all feeling, the weight of fear and hope intertwined. "We'll start looking for the source of this complaint. But we need to prepare for the possibility that it could be just the beginning." His words hung heavy in the air, each syllable striking a chord of anxiety. Sarah felt like her heart was racing as she glanced between Jake and the sheriff. "Then let us prepare," she said, resolute. "But we shouldn't do it in the shadows. Let us show our pride openly right here, right now." "Yes," Jake encouraged, glancing at the sheriff as if seeking confirmation. "What if we hold a rally? Invite everyone to join us, to celebrate love in all its forms?" The crowd erupted with enthusiasm, their spirits rising to meet the moment. Sarah felt a surge of excitement as a plan began to form. It wasn't just about Jake's wedding anymore, it was about the entire community finding its voice. "I can help organize it," Sarah offered, her heart fluttering at the thought of gathering everyone together, shining a light on what truly mattered. "Let us pick a date and spread the word. We'll make our voices heard, and no one can silence us." Jake and the sheriff exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. They were ready to take a stand, too. The sheriff nodded. "I'll mobilize my deputies to ensure people can celebrate safely," he declared, his voice stronger now. "Let us not just plan for the rally," another from the crowd chimed in. "Let us also gather stories. Why does love matter? What does this community stand for?" Sarah felt a fire ignite in her belly, excitement radiating as ideas flowed. They could highlight their connections, their struggles, and their victories. This was about more than one wedding, it was about the essence of who they were as a community. As the plans took shape, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of something incredible. But still, who had made the complaint? A stranger or someone hidden among them? The sheriff interrupted her thoughts. "Together, we will confront whatever comes our way." But first, we need to find out who is trying to tear us apart. The room grew quiet, a collective breath held in anticipation. As they confronted this unknown, could they also discover deeper truths about themselves and their community? Would the battle ahead bring them together or force them to confront hidden divisions? Sarah glanced around at the faces filled with determination, each one echoing her own resolve. With everything on the line, they were ready to fight with love as their fiercest weapon. What truths would they uncover as they pursued their enemy? The next day, the sun rose over the town, casting its warm glow on the streets still buzzing from last night's meeting. Sarah awoke with a sense of fierce determination, the euphoria of potential already wrapping its arms around her like a comforting blanket. Today, they would take their first real steps toward rallying the community. As she moved through her morning routine, her mind was racing with ideas. Each thought was vibrant, full of energy, how they would transform the town square into a celebration of love and acceptance. She envisioned colorful banners, music filling the air, laughter echoing off the walls. But beneath that excitement, a shadow lingered, whispering doubts. What if the complaint truly was dangerous? Sarah, are you ready? Jake's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her back to the present. He stood at her door, his enthusiasm brightening the room more than the morning light. I got a list of people to call about helping out. Yeah, let us go. Sarah shot back, her nervousness melting as she joined him. The day passed in a blur of activity. They gathered at the cafe, poring over plans with friends, allies, and even a few strangers who felt their hearts tugged by the rally's purpose. Stories of love, struggles, and dreams flowed freely, each one highlighting a thread connecting them all. Each face reflected hope, a reminder of why they were fighting against the fear that threatened to divide them. As Sarah took a moment to catch her breath, a chill ran down her spine. She spotted someone standing at the edge, quiet and withdrawn. It was Tommy, a neighbor known for being reserved. He'd lived in town for years but had hardly shown interest in community matters. What was he doing here? Hey, you okay? She asked, approaching him. His response was hesitant, eyes darting to the floor. I saw you all yesterday at the meeting. It got me thinking. His voice was barely a whisper. I always thought I don't belong, you know. But after hearing everyone, I wondered maybe I'm wrong. Sarah felt a pang of understanding. You do belong, Tommy. We all want to build a community together, a place where everyone feels accepted. For a moment, the weight of his insecurities hung in the air. Then, slowly, he nodded and smiled. I'd like to help. Together, they dove back into organization, each person contributing their unique talents. They crafted flyers, passed them out, and talked to everyone they met. Word spread fast like wildfire, and soon the town was buzzing, hearts beat in sync with excitement, but with this growing light also came shadows. Sarah felt a nagging fear each time she glanced back at the worried faces of friends unsure of how the town might react. Would those who made the complaint gather against them, fueling the fire rather than celebrating it? As dusk began to set, a notice flashed on Sarah's phone. It was a text from Jake, filled with urgency. We need to meet. Something happened. Her stomach sank, a feeling of dread rushing in uninvited. What if this was the moment they feared? She gathered her thoughts and rushed to meet him, her heart thudding with every step. When she entered the cafe, the atmosphere felt thick, tension hanging like an unseen fog. Jake stood near a corner table, his expression more serious than before, definitely not the excitement of earlier. What is it? She demanded, eyes wide. I found out who made the complaint. His voice was low, thick with gravity. And you're not going to believe it. As uncertainty hung in the air, Sarah's heart raced. The turning point was closer than ever, but would it only deepen their struggles? Sarah felt the world shift under her feet at Jake's words. She stared at him, her heart racing as confusion curled in her stomach. Who had made the complaint? The question loomed large, casting a shadow over the day's efforts. Who? She managed to whisper, dread mingling with a flicker of hope. It's Sheriff Mitchell. He's the one who complained about the wedding plans." Jake's eyes were dark, a storm brewing in them. "What? But why?" Her voice barely broke above a whisper. Sheriff Mitchell had always been a quiet presence in town, never showing any signs of discontent until now. "I don't know the details," Jake replied, running a hand through his hair. "But he's been talking to people. He thinks our rally will bring trouble or that we don't deserve to celebrate love in this town." The walls of the cafe seemed to close in. Sarah could almost hear the echoes of conversations and laughter from earlier in the day, and now those sounds felt distant and fragile. How could someone who held a position of authority act so fearfully against something beautiful? Does he even know what we're trying to do? Sarah's voice wavered, uncertainty poisoning the excitement that had fueled her all day. "We're trying to bring people together. Love is love." Jake stepped closer, his expression serious. "He thinks it doesn't belong here. And you know how some people feel about being different. They don't want change." The anger rose in Sarah, hot and fierce. "This is our town too. Why should we hide? If he thinks we don't belong, then he doesn't understand what this community stands for." She could feel the others watching, those who had worked alongside her, who shared the same dreams. Fear gripped her, but it was accompanied by an unexpected strength. They couldn't let one voice drown out the cries of many. "Then we have to show him," she declared, the fire igniting in her chest. "We must move forward. This rally can't just be a party, it needs to be a statement. We can't allow fear to dictate how we live our lives." Jake nodded, a spark of determination igniting behind his worried eyes. "You're right. But we need a plan. If we go through with this, we should be ready for whatever blowback comes our way." The other friends at the cafe began to gather around, sensing the tension but also the charge of adrenaline. Seeing their faces, Sarah felt a wave of hope wash over her. "Let us turn this around. Let us show everyone that love is louder than fear." Together, they brainstormed late into the night, rallying around the idea that their event would be a celebration of community in every sense. They would incorporate voices from the community, speakers from all walks of life, sharing stories of love and acceptance. But as Sarah looked out over her friends, fear nipped at her heels again. What if Sheriff Mitchell tried to shut them down? What if they faced a backlash they were not ready for? As they wrapped up their plans, Sarah felt a new message buzz on her phone. It was a notification from social media, a post from someone she never expected to see on the feed. Curiosity mixed with dread as she opened it, the words spilling across her screen, bold and ominous. "Will Sarah's rally be just a celebration, or will it ignite a division in our town? Join the conversation." Her heart raced again. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. What would this fight bring to light? Would it strengthen the bonds of community, or create rifts they couldn't mend? And as Sarah faced her friends, she knew the answer to those questions was just around the corner, looming like a storm ready to unleash its fury. The sun peeked over the horizon, illuminating the town with a glow that felt different. Sarah stood at the window, heart swaying between hope and fear. Today would mark their rally, a day where love would be celebrated in unison, but also a day when she knew they would face challenges head-on. "Are you ready?" Jake asked, his voice steady as he joined her, holding her hand firmly. She met his gaze and nodded, feeling the warmth of his grip flow through her. They had worked too hard to turn back now. Outside, neighbors began to gather, their faces a mix of determination and anxiety. As they walked toward the town square, Sarah could feel the energy buzzing in the air. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and laughter rose up with the sound of distant music, drowning out whispers of doubt. Each familiar face radiated support, creating a patchwork of assurance in an atmosphere that had once felt so divided. They arrived at the square, and the sight before them was breathtaking. the simple space had transformed into a vibrant celebration. Heartfelt stories shared by individuals echoed throughout the square, giving voice to the feelings hidden behind closed doors. Everyone was together for more than just one wedding, they were standing up for love and for community. As the rally kicked off, Sarah felt a surge of courage within. "This is our moment," she whispered to Jake, who smiled back at her with fierce pride. They stepped up to the makeshift stage, and the crowd's cheers wrapped around them like a warm embrace. "Thank you for being here," Sarah began, her voice carrying over the crowd, stronger than she'd ever imagined. "Today, we're not just celebrating love, we're showing that love has no bounds. We're here to embrace our community and lift each other up, no matter where we come from." The applause erupted into cheers, echoing hope through the air. Jake joined her at the podium, his spirit infectious. "We're challenging the division that holds us back. No one should be made to feel less because of who they love. We deserve to exist openly, unapologetically." The crowd surged forward, hands raised and faces glowing with solidarity. Just then, a figure stepped up to the front, a mesmerizing sight that stole the attention of everyone present. It was Mrs. Horton. Silence fell as she looked around, the weight of her past judgments dispersing. Her arms unfolded, and she stepped forward cautiously. "I've been wrong," she said, her voice trembling with sincerity. "I see now that I allowed my fears to drive a wedge between us. I want to learn, to love. Can we move forward together?" A ripple of disbelief spread before hearts opened in response. "Yes." The crowd cheered, some wiping tears from their eyes. The moment wrapped everyone in an unexpected warmth. Tommy, standing beside Sarah, glanced up at her, his expression a perfect reflection of hope. "Can it really be this easy?" he whispered, and her heart swelled. "I believe it can," she assured him with a smile. The sheriff stood back, watching the scene unfold with a furrowed brow, his confidence shaken. He stepped forward, glancing at Mrs. Horton before looking at the crowd. "This isn't just about permits anymore," he began, his voice steadying. "This is a show of unity, and maybe it's time for the law to recognize love too." The crowd erupted in cheers, a tidal wave of enthusiasm. As hope blossomed, the mayor stepped in. "If we can harness this spirit, we can rewrite our story together. Let us bridge our differences and allow love to guide us." The applause swelled, each cheer a punctuation mark in Sarah's heart, a reassurance they could make a difference. They were no longer home to secrecy and shame, they were stepping into the light. But just as the joy surged, a voice cut through the jubilation. "This is all nonsense," a member from the back shouted defiantly. But before they could stir dissent, Jake had already taken charge. "You can choose to see division or you can accept love. We're not going back." His words fueled a unity stamped out the shadows of doubt. The rally grew louder, affirming their resolve. Moments rushed ahead, a wave of colorful banners, laughter, stories exchanged that painted a future shimmering with hope. Moved by the energy, Sarah caught Jake's eye. They exchanged a glance filled with everything that had been fought for. They had made a choice to not only celebrate love, but to lead the charge for a better tomorrow. Together, hand in hand, they erupted with the crowd's voice, a symphony of voices raised against the tide of fear. "Together! Together!" echoed through the town, a sonorous melody that resonated in hearts like nothing before. Love surged, defiant and loud, rewriting their story. This was just the beginning. With a heart full of renewed courage and love that seemed to brighten the air, Sarah felt the moment cementing not only their lives but the community. Together, they had triumphed over fear, moving forward into a world ready for love. But they needed support from you too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. You need to subscribe now.